What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. At long last, the Overwatch 2 Starwatch event is here, and we've finally gotten to play the brand new Starwatch game mode, experience the story of this side Star Wars inspired spin-off universe, and purchase a number of juicy space-themed cosmetics along the way. But now that we've had a few days to actually play the event, does it live up to the hype we all had for it? Shortly after the event launched, I posted polls on both Twitter and YouTube to try to gauge how people were actually feeling about the Starwatch event, and by and large, people seemed to like it. And I have to admit, personally, I have been having a ton of fun playing Starwatch as well, but it certainly has some problems with it, which I think are pretty important to touch on. So in today's video, I'll be going in depth with my own thoughts on Starwatch, including where it succeeded and where it fell a bit short. So let's start off with something I absolutely adore about Starwatch, which is that I love the theming and the story and just all the characterization of the event itself. Having this sort of space opera inspired story featuring alternate universe versions of the Overwatch heroes and their own unique roles is just such an exciting and fun and creative thing to do with the Overwatch cast of characters. Now admittedly, this is something Blizzard has done before, specifically with the whole Junkenstein's Revenge side story universe of characters and whatnot, but it's fun seeing them take that sort of idea and introduce a new side universe, being the Starwatch universe. And especially with the inclusion of the comic and the story behind the game mode itself and the actual mission the Watchers are going on, it's all just a really fun experience to see these characters playing these alternate roles, essentially, and is the sort of creativity that, honestly, I wish we saw even more of when it comes to Overwatch. The heroes in Overwatch themselves are surprisingly effective actors in terms of being able to fill different roles for different types of characters. Who would have guessed that the delusional mad scientist Sigma makes for an extremely effective evil galactic emperor? I mean, it just fits him so well, and it's so satisfying seeing him play this role in Starwatch. So overall, when it comes to the aesthetics and just the idea and the novelty of this type of game mode and event and story associated with it, I love it. I think Blizzard did a fantastic job, and it's absolutely something I want to see them do more with, not only with the Starwatch universe itself, but also other universes like Junkenstein's Revenge and other brand new ones they might come up with later down the line. But having said enough about the story aspect of it, let's shift now a bit into the actual event itself, starting first and foremost with the mission, the gameplay, the actual game mode, Starwatch. Yeah, I think this is where a lot of the problems start to come about. One of the issues which I think a lot of people noticed pretty quickly upon playing this game mode is that it's not very well balanced. And funnily enough, this is something which we probably should have seen coming before the event even started. I mean, before the event launched, we already knew which heroes were going to be on which sides of this mission, and when the Watchers' only tank options are Winston and Wrecking Ball, and they're going up against an enemy team that has a Mercy and a Bastion, yeah, we should have seen the imbalance coming there. Oftentimes when playing as the Watchers, it can just be really frustrating, because it just genuinely feels like you don't have the appropriate tools to actually combat the Infinite Empire. And while in the grand scheme of things, I think the game mode isn't actually terribly unbalanced, especially once you get more familiar with the game mode itself and the characters you have at your disposal. For any casual Overwatch player who's just jumping into Starwatch for the first time and doesn't really know what to expect, I don't think it's a very good or satisfying experience. I think it's pretty frustrating for most people initially, because unless you really know what you're doing as the Watchers and are operating in a rather coordinated manner, it's pretty hard for them to actually get the advantage over the Empire, which, funnily enough, is fitting when you consider the context of rebels trying to combat an established Empire presence. Kind of remarkable how that actually works out like that, but unfortunately doesn't make for the most satisfying gameplay experience. But beyond just the direct balance of the heroes available for each given team, I think Starwatch also has a number of clunky aspects to it. The first of which I'll mention is the Horizon Lunar Colony map itself. Trying to squeeze 4 separate capture points into what is perhaps the physically smallest map in the entire game, barring arcade maps and whatnot, ends up making the whole thing just feel incredibly claustrophobic. Especially on capture points 1 and 3, it just feels like there's such little space to operate, especially when you have heroes like Winston and Wrecking Ball who try to utilize big open areas to move around a lot. It just feels kind of frustrating trying to get in and do things and not just get taken out by a turret or just sort of stuck in an area. And I don't know. I feel like in terms of map design, Horizon Lunar Colony, I absolutely understand why they made this game mode on this map. It is the only space map, so of course they're going to set the space event in the space map. But in terms of the layout, I don't think it was really the best. Ideally, they would have built a brand new original map for this type of game mode, but obviously that would have taken a tremendous amount of resources from Blizzard, which obviously they couldn't justify for a silly little event like Starwatch. But it does have an impact, which is that the map itself does feel claustrophobic, and I do think it has a negative impact on the gameplay itself. But moving on from just balance and map, let's talk a little bit about the PvE elements of it, or at the very least, the new non-conventional elements added in this game mode, such as the AI Doomfist for the Watchers, the turrets for the Infinite Empire, the revive mechanic, which is something we've seen in past PvE events, as well as other little changes like the graviton barrel canisters, which are scattered around the map. Now, speaking of these gravity canisters, these have actually surprisingly, in my opinion, been one of the stars of Starwatch as a game mode. They introduced such an interesting and fun utility mechanic where you don't want to stand too close to them because someone could shoot them, but they're often in opportune positions where you'll want to hold to combat the enemy. And I just love anytime I'm able to sort of on the fly utilize them to trap an enemy soldier or the Mercy and then take them out. Honestly, I've just had a lot of fun with them as a mechanic. I don't really know why. It just seems like it fits and adds for a really interesting sort of strategic element to the game mode itself. The other PvE elements, though, I don't know if they hold up quite as well. AI Doomfist isn't great. He often just sort of runs in and dies on his own and definitely doesn't know how to block properly, which is kind of an issue. The turrets, I think, are fine. They add for an interesting extra bit of defense for the Infinite Empire and making them a bit more formidable of a force to fight against. But the other element, which I do have a bit of an issue with, is the revive mechanic. Now, obviously, this was Blizzard wanting to implement more PvE elements into the game mode itself by introducing the PvE revive mechanic, where you can pick up a downed teammate in order to get them right back into the action. Well, unfortunately, I feel like this just ends up making a sort of weird sort of pacing for the game mode. Rather than just grouping up, pushing in, dying, and then respawning and grouping up and trying to push again, you're in this weird sort of position where it's like, if you're playing as the Watchers and all your other teammates are downed, do you try to just sort of hold out in a spot and revive them, or do you just fall back to the respawn point and then hope that your teammates respawn and regroup with you there? In terms of the actual gameplay of it, the revive mechanic almost feels unnecessary. I mean, it's not like regular PvE where there aren't spawn rooms. You can literally respawn in Starwatch, so why wouldn't you just do that? It's a lot simpler and definitely reduces the sort of clutter of just having all these downed players everywhere scooting around trying to get back to their team to get revived, but then they get cut off and nobody's left on their team. It just adds an extra chaotic element, which chaos isn't necessarily a bad thing in game modes like this, but in this specific case, it kind of just felt like a bad thing. This is one element of Starwatch which I'd actually be really eager to try playing a version of the game mode without the revive and just see how that compares. Since my sort of impressions of it is that reviving is unnecessary for the mode itself, and overall I think more than anything just sort of makes the game mode feel more clunky. But moving on from gameplay, one final area of this event which I'd like to critique, and honestly isn't even really a critique of Starwatch specifically, but more so Overwatch events in general at this point, is the challenges. Now, with the Starwatch event, there's a number of different cosmetics, including the Wrecking Ball Epic skin, which you can unlock for free simply by completing challenges in the game mode. Okay, cool, that's great. But they're really easy to complete. You basically just play a few matches and you'll just get them automatically. And while I know some people like simple challenges like that, personally I think it would add a lot more to Starwatch and other events that have been similar to this if Blizzard made these challenges a bit more long-term at the very least, if not just difficult to achieve. I think Starwatch would be a lot more fun if you'd go into it with the mindset of, oh, you want to finish these challenges and they require you to do specific things things or play a specific way. Like maybe one of the challenges is to win as 4 different characters from each of the sides. That way you won't just always queue into whatever hero you feel most comfortable on, and will be more encouraged to mix up who exactly you're playing and also which side you're playing on. These are the sort of challenges we used to see back in the day for the Archives missions and events like Junkenstein's Revenge, and nowadays Blizzard has sort of given up on a lot of the more difficult and time-consuming challenges in favor of just having ones you basically unlock by default simply by playing it. Personally, I'd like to see some more deliberate challenge put into these challenges, but you know, it is what it is. I know a lot of people disagree with that point and like the easy challenges, but personally, I would like to see things be a bit more interesting in what you actually have to do to unlock the different cosmetics through the challenges. So on that note, overall, what are my thoughts on Starwatch? Well, despite how many critiques I've put forth for the game mode here in this video, overall I've been having a lot of fun with it. It is a fun event game mode, it adds a lot of interesting new things to the game, and it mixes things up in refreshing ways, and I quite enjoy that. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. And if I'm being honest, I am a little underwhelmed with the event. I feel like we should have gotten something a bit more, maybe not substantial, but probably better balanced, better thought out, better polished in terms of the actual gameplay itself. As I've mentioned previously, there are a lot of similarities to this event to the OG Junkenstein's Revenge Halloween event. And while I love that Blizzard is trying to replicate the sort of feel and atmosphere of older events like that with all the story aspects of it, ultimately I just kind of feel like Starwatch is a less polished version of Junkenstein's Revenge. Even in Junkenstein Revenge's first year, back all the way in 2016, when there were only 4 playable characters in the PvE mission, the game mode itself just felt a lot more refined and polished. A level of polish which unfortunately it feels like we just don't often see in Overwatch at all these days. I'm sure there's a ton of different reasons for why the state of Overwatch is like that at the moment, and that's something that's probably best reserved for its own separate video. But if nothing else, I will say I have been enjoying Starwatch, and considering how Junkenstein's Revenge advanced and evolved over the years of Overwatch 1, I hope that Blizzard doesn't give up on Starwatch after this first run of it being an event, and like Junkenstein's Revenge, comes back to it by polishing it and tweaking it and adjusting it over the years going forward. Maybe find ways to better balance the teams, maybe add new maps that are more fitting for a game mode of this type. There's a lot of different avenues they could take it, and considering that this is the first version of Starwatch we've ever seen, it does sort of make sense that it's not that great. It is highly experimental in a lot of ways, which is perfectly fair. I don't fault them for that, but I definitely want to see them improve Starwatch going forward. I think it does have a lot of potential as an event and also a side spin-off universe, which I would love to see fleshed out by introducing more characters from the Overwatch roster, introducing more gameplay mechanics, and of course, further polishing and refining the mechanics they've already put in. So on that note, I've been enjoying Starwatch. I think it's a great new experiment for Blizzard to try out something like this, and I'd certainly love to see where they take all this in the future. So on that note, thank you all so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts on Starwatch in the comments down below. Have you been enjoying it as much as I have, or maybe you were just too put off by the imbalance and clunkiness of the game mode itself? Either way, be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch content. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.